Hi there, it's Steve Oppadale here with you, owner of SMA Digital. And in this video, I want to show you through our quiz content creation template. And this is a Word document template to help develop the questions and the answers and the next steps sort of text that you can put into your quiz and help you develop a quiz that you can then generate hundreds and hundreds of leads, or in some cases with some of our clients, thousands of leads, using a quiz to lead people through to the next step and warm them up along the way. So this quiz template is a Microsoft Word document. So hopefully you have Microsoft Word or something on your computer that you can open this in. And what I'm going to do in this video is just very simply take you through step by step this template so you can understand what it means, and that way you can confidently go away and fill in your own template in your own time. So the first page is really just a quick introduction to using this template. A few different points here around things like the 80-20 principle, where 20% of the effort will give you 80% of the outcome. And this is very true when it comes to creating a quiz. One of the things that often sort of holds people back from creating their content for the quiz is really just trying to perfect it and trying to make it absolutely perfect. Now, the beauty of having your quiz online and digital is that you can constantly improve it and change it as you get more and more feedback from your peers, clients, and prospects. So try not to see this as such a daunting sort of exercise. It's really about just taking what you already know, your knowledge, your wisdom, your experience, and putting it down into a bit of a quiz. And this exercise, by the way, is quite valuable in any business. So now you've got your contents page, which is obviously just how this document is all laid out. The first one we have here is the pre-work. And this is just trying to work out what the aim of this quiz is, what you're trying to achieve, and who are you talking to? Who's your avatar that you're speaking to? The idea of sort of answering these questions first yourself, and you don't even need to write this down if you don't want to. You just need to really think about it to begin with. So when you start creating this quiz, you know exactly who you're talking to, and the language that you create and write can be directed to that particular audience or niche. Now the first point here is your quiz style. Now here at SMA Digital we have two sort of styles. One is called a single click answer and one is called now and desired bars. They are both very similar. The single click is literally you get to see it on the screen, you can click to the next page. And I'll show you a couple of examples in a second. And the now and desired bars is where you get to see all the different answers, and you get to use a slider bar to choose where you are right now and where you want to be. Now, they are very similar in the sense that all of our quizzes tend to have a question or a statement at the top, and then 4 or 5 in some cases definitions to describe that answer. The reason why we do that, it's quite unique for what we do, and the reason is that then people can really self-identify in one of those boxes as to where they are, as opposed to saying having a question and giving someone an answer 1 to 5 in numbers. It doesn't have that emotional impact on somebody. So when they can read a definition and go, oh, actually I'm here, this is where I am right now, they can really start to identify and start to warm up to what you can help them with. Okay, so I'll show you through the two examples. So I'll show you one here, the single click answer. So I'll just load one of them up. Okay, here's an example of a single click answer. This is by Speaker Insight, their expert indicator. This is where speakers, authors, and coaches discover what impact their business is making. This is a really cool sort of quiz where you get to go through and figure out how much of an expert are you at the moment. And you can see here we have our statement at the very top, which is here the number 1, visibility. And then if you hover over any of the 4 points underneath, you click on the one that you resonate with the most, and then you can go next. And it'll go on to the next page and continue along. For example, marketing, click which one you resonate with the most, and you can go next. The ones for the slider bars is slightly different. If we go to, say, Kelly Teasdale's version, which is Test Your Business Marketing Superpowers. And basically, Kelly has broken her quiz up into her 8 different sections that she helps teach to her clients. And if you scroll down to the actual quiz itself, you can see the first superpower is analytics. And here we've got the 2 slider bars. So again, you've got the statement at the top, and you've got the 4 different definitions. And by the way, those definitions really go from the far left, where you really don't want to be, all the way to the far right, which is ideally where she can help you with if you're not here at the moment. So you get to self-identify and go, okay, well, on this scale, I am currently a 3 or 4, or I'm probably leaning more towards a 3. And in 12 months' time, this particular one, I would like to be a 10, maybe, or 11 would be good. And then people can self-identify where they are and where they want to be. The big difference with this one compared to this one over here is on this one, it leads into much more of a manual sort of sales process. If you're doing a lot more sort of manual-based sales and wanting to have a conversation with somebody after they fill in your quiz or diagnostic tool. So you want to talk about their results in each of these areas as to where they are right now. And you want to talk about where they want to be if they were an 11 in their business in 12 months' time, and talk about how you can help them. This is probably a more popular choice just because it is more user-friendly, where you could get to literally just click and choose. Another example of this one here is Shah Osman's one, how much freedom do you really have? And this is great because it's got the question at the top, so note that some of the other ones I've been showing you have just statements. You can also just have a question, and sometimes it's a bit easier to do that, such as how hard do you feel you work right now? And again, you can see the far left is where people ideally don't want to be, but you could be here right now. For example, I can't imagine working harder, and sometimes question if it's worth it, all the way through to I do work I love when I choose on my terms. So depending on where you are, you might be closest to like the second box, for example. You just click onto that and you can go next and you can go through the quiz. So that's the 2 different examples. They're very similar. Again, it's really just the matter of choice between the 2 and a personal preference for what you prefer. So choose either one of them. If you like this left one, you sort of just double click on it. This is on a Mac, so it might be a little bit different on a PC. Go into checked, and that will show up as checked there. So undo that. Okay, the next part is your title and quiz headline. Now this is a really important part of your quiz because this is really what leads everything in the quiz to make it sort of happen. And this is where you get to sort of pin yourself down as to what the whole quiz and what you're all about. So a good headline is a combination, as it says at the very top here, it's a combination of practical information, so literally describing about what your quiz is all about and what you're trying to achieve, and it's got an emotional response as well. So a couple of good examples here from the Coaching Academy. Do you have what it takes to become a life coach? And you can see that over here. Do you have what it takes to be a life coach? And this is their quiz, because if you don't know the Coaching Academy, they do life coaching courses. So if you do want to become a life coach, they offer courses for that. And they use this quiz to see, well, you know, do you really have what it takes, and are you really ready and want to become a life coach? And if you are, great, fantastic, come join one of our sort of free training sessions. So it's a nice sort of lead in for that. Another example here is First Aid for Life. Now this is Emma Hammett from First Aid for Life, who runs an exceptional first aid company in London, but they deliver work to all over the UK. And they've had, you might have seen it promoted. If you haven't yet, you probably will soon. She's had literally over 18,000 people fill in her quiz already in the last sort of, well, it says 6 months. It's actually now about 8 months or so, and it's a little bit more than that. But it just continues to grow, which is why it's forever changing. And if we just have a quick look at hers, now hers is how confident would you be in a medical emergency? And that's the top of the line. Now, basically what she's done is she's taken, okay, well, what is the 8 different aspects that people ask her about the most when it comes to a medical emergency and what they try and teach. So this is all about the 2 different things I mentioned in the headline. One is it's really obvious that it's all to do with first aid, and then it's really emotional because it's all about, well, how well or confident would you be if somebody, for example, is hit by a car and you're the first on scene? So the far left, if you're not confident at all, for example, you would sooner not get involved, would just phone an ambulance and stay back out of the way, all the way through to totally confident, where you can confidently help prioritize injuries, treat most serious, and stabilize the casualty whilst waiting for the paramedics. So yeah, two completely different sort of ends of the spectrum, and you get to go through and choose. But you can see in the headline it's really emotional, and it describes it as well. So that's the first thing you want to do, and this is probably where you want to sort of brainstorm and try to come up with a good headline here. Maybe ask your friends for their input as well, if you narrow it down to the top 3 or something. And this is probably one of the most important parts of your quiz, because this is what's going to help people actually complete it. Okay, now down to the actual questions and content. Now this is obviously a core part, and again we highly recommend sort of brainstorming the questions first, not so much the answers. But the idea is we've got a grid here, and this is just an example amount of boxes, and you can see here this is an optional group or category. What you want to do is you want to ask your question on the left hand side. Let's say if we're talking about a yoga business, for example, how well do you wake up in the morning? As a random example, because this is a yoga business, this helps people to wake up with yoga. Let's just say that's true. By the way, I do love yoga, as a side note, and I do that a few times a week. But let's say it's a yoga business and you got a question here about how well do you wake up in the morning. If you're struggling, it might be a definition about like, I rarely get out of bed, all the way through to I jump out of bed sort of thing, and obviously explain it a little bit more. But the idea of what we do here to fill this in is you want to start with the questions, and you want to come up with them first, and we recommend normally between 7 and 8. Some of our quizzes that we do have probably up to 10, and if you're doing 10 or even 12 sometimes, generally it's grouped with 2 questions on 1 page, and that's particularly true if you have certain sections in your business that you really want to talk about. For example, although she only has 1 question per thing, you can see here Kelly Teasdale, she offers 8 different areas of her business that she helps people with. So for example, content creation, PR, digital marketing, analytics, etc. So these are the 8 areas that she helps people in her business with, and so she's developed a question around each of these 8. So when you do this quiz, it's a similar thing. You can write in each area here. So this might be like waking up as one, and then you could go through and put down, for example, the yoga business, the 8 different areas that I really help people with as a yoga instructor down here. You develop your questions for them, either 1 or 2 questions per group or category. So if it's waking up, maybe I do actually have 2 questions about waking up. So not only how well do you wake up in the morning, but so this has got to do with jumping out of the bed. So when you finally get up, and then this is all about waking up as well. And again, the 4 definitions here, and you'll notice I started with the far left and the far right. Highly recommend to do that first, because it makes filling in the middle two a lot easier. So then you might do waking up, and then an example there might be something like I am still asleep until I find my coffee. Until I find my coffee, I am full of energy. As examples. So the idea is you just want to fill in this grid. Once you get the questions done and you have the left-hand column, which is the struggling column, and feel free to change that name, and the right-hand column, which is the game changer column, and again, feel free to change that name, then you go through and fill in these middle 2. And the idea is that somebody filling in this quiz if they're reading a question about how well do you wake up in the morning, they should be able to identify themselves as one of these columns. So that's the aim of what you want to do. And again, this far left column is where they're really struggling, and this far right is ideally where you can then help them with and where they want to be. And then one final tip and word of advice for these definitions, these 4 definitions that you put in the boxes, is to try and keep them in present tense in terms of either I or I'm, so I am or I doing something, so that people can relate to it, or you can choose you and you are, or your, so you are, etc., etc. Choose either you or I sort of tense, and then to sort of run with that the whole way. And you really want these to be as short as possible, which is not always an easy thing to do, but you do want it to be absolutely short, because people are going to be trying to sort of skim read online, and they're not going to read paragraphs of text. So you want it to be ultimately 1 sentence if you can. If it needs to be 2 sentences, make sure they're short sentences, but try to keep them as short as possible. So that is the grid. That is probably the sort of a big main part of it. Let me go down to number 3, the overall results content. Now what this is basically on the final results page, as well as in the PDF report that people get when they fill in your quiz. This is text to show and talk about their score. So we break that up again into the 4 sections, 0 to 25%, which is struggling, all the way through to game changer, 75 to 100%. And this is where you can put in text about each of these columns and categories. Feel free to move things around if you want. Feel free to add in pictures. You can also add in videos if you wish as well to talk about each one. And the idea is basically at the end of the grid, at the end of the quiz, somebody will get a score, for example, 48%. And if they get the 48%, they're going to be showing this box here, frustrated, 26 to 50%, and they're going to show this text or this video or this image, whatever it might be. So that's that section there. Number 4 is if you want to do it in a little bit more detail, you can then go into the individual questions or group-based results content. So what that is again, it's text according to their score. But in this scenario, we can go, and this is optional, by the way, very much optional. Probably only a handful of people will actually take us up on this. Particularly to begin with, because a lot of people like to keep it simple, but if you do want to go more complex to begin with, this is a great way to let them understand exactly what each area and each part of their score means. So we would take literally all of our questions that we have, or each of our groups at the very top. So if we go back up, and I'll show you this as an example. Let's say we take waking up as a group. It could just be the question. And we'll go back down. And I'll put that in here. And we'd put all our different groups or questions. You wouldn't want to have too many. If you have lots of questions, just use your groups. If you only have 6 or 7 questions, just use those 6 or 7 questions. And again, this is the text that will show up for each of those group of questions. So waking up, now if I've now scored low in this, I could say something about that in terms of really struggling to get out of bed, and I could say something about how it's not very good for trying to get a jump start on the day, etc. All the way through the right, where it might be like, wow, fantastic to hear that you're actually getting out of bed and getting your day going. Keep it up, sort of thing. You've got some examples here, and you can see some examples in some of our demos, quizzes as well on our homepage. But yeah, so this is then sort of how it will then show on their results page and in their PDF. So for example, waking up, if this was waking up here instead of focus strategy, if I only got 6%, then I, the person filling in the quiz, would see whatever text, image or video is in this particular box here. So that's how this grid works. Feel free to add more rows or delete rows as you wish. The next one is your call to actions or next steps. So this is where you now get to start leading people to the next step after they fill in your quiz. So we've got 2 options here. So it's not to fill in both of these, it's to fill in one or the other. And the first option is we can literally just send everybody to the same particular thing to begin with. And this is good if you're just getting started with a quiz for the first time and you're not quite sure exactly where you want to send people through to. Most consultants or coaches will probably send people through to a booking, a calendar booking to have a free call with them. And because it's a really good time to ask them that, because they've just warmed themselves up with you, they've filled in their quiz with you, and they have sort of already self-identified where they are, and they've probably self-identified the fact that they are struggling or frustrated, and they would like to be more than that. So this is a great time to offer them a free call, or lead them into a webinar, or whatever it might be. Now, this top one is literally for everyone, no matter what score they have. Or you can use the bottom one, which is, again, dependent on their final score. So if somebody does end up scoring in a low 0 to 25%, then you can add in a particular call to action in here, and it could be a different one if they're in a game changer call to action. So this is the text where you can put in what call to action you want to give them according to their score. Okay, the final part here is the other requirements, which is mainly sort of tech requirements. And this is quite easy. All we need to do is, all we need to know is really just a few extra details about your business and what you want to have happen on your quiz. So the first one here is literally just the name of the person that the emails are used for the people who are receiving your quiz. Because basically what happens is once we set up your quiz, when somebody fills it in, not only will you get a notification that they filled it in, but they'll also get a notification from you or from your brand or from your team saying that, hey, yep, thanks for filling it in, and here's your PDF report attached as well. So generally speaking, this is probably your name. If you're a coach, if you're a business, it might be a business name, could be a team name, or it could be a colleague name. So I'll just put, for example, Steve Okotal. The email address, I'll put steve at smadigital.co.uk, because that's the address that I want them to receive the PDF report from. Branding guidelines, if you do have branding guidelines, like a proper sort of graphic design guidelines, send it through or add it into here where we can find it. Or generally speaking, just write in, it's on my website, and then maybe put your website address so we can get it. And what we'll do is we'll grab your logo and your colors and your fonts and everything, and we'll match the quiz to your branding that you already have. If you have a different logo or you're in the middle of rebranding, just send us what you have and we'll do our best to make it work. Now, this next question, do you have a CRM or mailing list program? So this is if you have something like ActiveCampaign or Infusionsoft, or if you have MailChimp or any sort of newsletter program that has, they call it an active API. What we need here is some of the details about that. Now, if you have ActiveCampaign, you could literally just write ActiveCampaign and we'll ask you for the details further on. Or if you know how to access it, try and find what they call the API key and send that through here as well. Don't let this sort of be a bottleneck. Just put down whatever you can think of at the moment. Tracking codes is if you have and you want to get installed in your quiz as well, something like a Facebook Pixel or Google Analytics if you have that as well. Google Analytics is basically you'd have to go and find your Google Analytics account and send us through the tracking code for that, or the GA number they call it as well. Either one is fine. For the Facebook Pixel, if you literally just Google how to find my Facebook Pixel, there's 1,000,001 tutorials to show you how to do that. And basically it's a long number with called a Facebook ID, sort of pixel ID, and that's the number that we want to put into here. And the idea of that is then we can track exactly on Facebook who is filling in your quiz, and you can do different things with different advertising routes and retargeting according to who does or doesn't fill in your quiz. And the last question here is, what domain would you prefer to send people to view your new quiz online? Now we've got options here. You can only choose one though, because we can't have multiple at the same time, unfortunately. But what it is by default, when we send you your first sort of test example, it's going to show up as smadigital.app/ whatever your name is, or your company name. So you can leave it at that if you don't mind, and you're just using it as a final sort of point where people are going to anyway. Or we might have it as one of our shortened URLs. This is short for quizmagnets.com. So we do also have quizmagnets.com, but this is a shortened version, qzmgnts.com. So again, you could just have yourcompany.quizmagnets.com. Or if you want, we can set you up with your own domain name, and it could be your quizname.co.uk or .com. So, for example, a yogi quiz, it could be like your topyogiquiz.com or whatever that might be. And just let us know what you want. As part of our package, we will happily sort of register this domain on your behalf and get that all set up with SSL so that it's security enabled, and you've got that little padlock at the top left of your screen as well. Now we can also do a subdomain, but unless you have what they call a wildcard SSL certificate, which is more or less sort of an advanced technical term for a hosting provider that does that sort of stuff. We can set you up with your own subdomain of your current URL. So if you want it as quiz.your.domainname.com, we can do that. It will just take a little bit of extra time to get that sorted because we need you to change some of the domain name settings for that to be enabled. And that's it. Again, think 80-20. Don't let any of this, particularly this last page, the technical questions, sort of get you down and not finish it. You don't have to complete all of this. You can ask us. We can talk to you through this as well. So there's no stress there. But yeah, hopefully this was a valuable video to show you through our quiz template, and do take the time to start sort of working on this. I would always recommend it as soon as possible while it's sort of fresh in your mind. Feel free to, of course, rewatch this video many times as you wish, and reach out to us anytime you wish as well if you have any questions, or you just want our feedback to let you know what we think of what your quiz ideas are. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for listening. My name is Steve Alcatel, Director of SMA Digital, and take care. Cheers. Bye for now.